Hello everyone, my name is Mike, and this is the Bored Cyborg. Welcome back to yet another episode. Today I want to talk about how to collect physical media, especially when you're on a budget. I did a video entitled Why I Collect Physical Media, and it did really well, and a lot of you guys seem to enjoy it, and so I wanted to do sort of a follow-up to that and kind of give you guys a whole bunch of pointers and tips on how to collect physical media here in 2020. A lot of people ask me how I got a collection of this size. I own anywhere from 8,000 to 9,000 physical DVDs, Blu-rays, and VHS, and I've collected all of this on really not much money at all, to be quite honest. Yes, of course, I've spent money on my hobby that I love, but not as much as some would think. I've been collecting for about 15 years physical media, and I remember when I started going into Goodwills and thrift shops and Salvation Armies, things like that, and just finding so many cool things and starting my collection. I did also collect a lot that was on Amazon and eBay at that time because it wasn't as expensive as things are now, where eBay is a true teller of the market of how much things go for. But that's really where I started collecting this stuff in my late teens, going to the Goodwills and just being diligent. Of course, you need some money to collect. I'm not going to sit here and say that I got all this for free. That's not the case. Sometimes that's the case, but I'd say overall, if I had a running total of what I've spent, it's definitely in the positive, but it's not as much as a lot of you may think. But to collect in 2020, I really don't think you need to have much money. But you do have to have time. You have to persevere. You have to be consistent. Patience is another big one. Essentially, where the patience comes in, you could go to Goodwill 10 times and not find a damn thing. But that 11th time, you might find something. Or not. Maybe it'll be the 12th time. But you gotta keep going. Every time you drive by that Goodwill, just stop, see what they have. How long is it going to take? A couple minutes at best. So this is what I mean. You got to be consistent, you got to be patient, and you got to have a little bit of time on your hands, or at least time to invest into your hobby. So I'm going to break it down into multiple bullet points, just highlighting the techniques, the skills, whatever you want to call them, of collecting, of hunting in the modern age, in a time where physical media is dying. We're all bearing witness to what's going on with physical media. I think it's going to be around for a lot longer than any of us are here, but it is dwindling in terms of, streaming taking over, Hulu, Netflix, Prime, all of those things, and that's why I think right now is a prime time to start collecting and collect on a budget. Get a lot of cool things for really cheap. So here we go. The first thing I want to talk about is hitting up thrift shops, pawn shops, discount stores like Dollar Tree, Flea Market, yard sales, anywhere that might sell movies. If you're driving by a place and you're like, that place looks like it might have some movies, stop and check. You never know. It could be your own little bastion of movies where not many people go to. And I think there are thrift shops and pawn shops in almost every small town, and if they're not in your small town, look in your neighboring towns, maybe some bigger cities that are an hour away. Sometimes I'm sure some people are going to have to make a hike, but I'm sure there are some thrift shops, some Goodwills within your radius of where you live. Of course, I can't speak for everyone, but I would imagine the majority of people, if you do a little bit of driving, you'll find some thrift shops, pawn shops, things like that. Pawn shops are usually in more of the city sorts of areas. Like I go into Raleigh, I go into Clayton and Garner here in North Carolina, and there are a ton of pawn shops and thrift shops like Salvation Army, Goodwill, Restore, Habitat for Humanity, places like that. You could also check Facebook Marketplace and other neighborhood marketplace websites, but just know that people using the internet to do that are probably going to have an idea of what things are worth, and they usually look them up, and then their asking prices are a little bit too high, especially if they're going eBay prices or even near eBay prices where you have to drive out to them. It just most of the time isn't really worth it for me, but every once in a while you find a good deal on there, so those are definitely worth checking out. And I would say buy in lots if you could. If somebody's selling 200 movies or little lots of 50 movies, buy them all up, and I will talk about what to do with the stuff that you're not so interested in and keeping the ones you are interested in. That'll be another bullet point here in a minute. Once you find a bunch of places that sell movies, again, any thrift, pawn, anything like that, flea markets in your area that might happen during the weekends, plan a route. Go out on Saturday. Sunday, a lot of pawn shops and thrift shops are closed. That's another little tip that I've found out the hard way. Look at a map and sort of plan your route to hit all of them in as little time as possible. Again, time is of the essence, of course, so you want to do things as smartly as possible in terms of time. But once you have it, check these places out consistently. Like I said, at least once a week. If you could do twice a week, great. After work, maybe you could hit a couple of them up. Anytime you're passing these places and you want movies and you're interested in having a collection like I have, you gotta stop. Even if it's for a few minutes, you might get lucky. And man, when you get lucky, it feels good. And I always tell people, collect what you are interested in, what interests you. But also, start to learn the market and understand what's out of print, what certain things are going for, the demand for certain things that you may not be interested in or you may already have. Learn the market. It's very important to know your hobby. If you're in a hobby as deep as I am, I know this hobby really well. I could look at a movie and tell you about what it's worth and what you could get for it. And once you know the market and you're able to pick things up that you might not be interested in, but know other people are, buy it, pick it up if the price is right, 50 cents, $1, things like that. Flip it. Try to figure out how much you could get for it so that you could put that money that you get for that DVD into your hobby, into buying things that you do enjoy. And that's another little side note. Try not to pay more than $2 for a DVD or Blu-ray. In 2020, honestly, that's about what they're going for at these places. That's what these places are able to move them at because so many people are doing streaming. I find a lot of places where they're a quarter, DVDs are a quarter. I find a lot of places where Blu-rays are $1, $2 max, maybe $3 max for Blu-rays. I'd say you could spend, unless you're going into like Dollar General where they're like 4 or 5, or Big Lots where they're $3 to $5, which still isn't bad for a brand new movie. But a lot of the ones that I'm talking about you're going to find at thrift shops and pawn shops are used. So I'd say $1 to $2 is max what you want to spend for a DVD or Blu-ray. VHS you could usually find in the 50-cent range, dollar tops. 4K I'm already finding for $3 to $5 out at yard sale or flea markets and thrift shops, things like that. So that is about the price range you want to look at. Anything more than that, I'd say be patient. Again, there's where patience comes into play. Now, another rule of thumb is when you're out looking for things for yourself and possible things that to flip so that you could fuel your collection that way, one of my main tips is if it's something you've never heard of, take the time to look it up. Most of us have the incredible tool of a smartphone. I understand not everybody does. This is possible without a smartphone because I did it for many years. I would take risks on things that I thought looked out of print, looked like the demand would be there, and a lot of times I got burnt on that, but half the time, and the more I learned the market, I got better and better at it. What I'm saying is a smartphone with the eBay app definitely could make things easier for you and cut that risk factor to almost zero. If you have a couple seconds to scan a barcode, to look something up, to see how much it's going for, do so. Now, when you're using the eBay app, what you want to do is go to sold listings, check that little box, and look at what things are actually selling for, because any schmuck could put any price on any DVD, even though it may not reflect the actual market. What you want to do is go to sold listings and see what people are actually paying for these movies. That is imperative. Again, if you've not heard of a certain title, it looks like an older movie, especially anything made before like the year 2000, definitely take the few seconds it takes to look it up and see what it's going for. Like I said, even if it's something you're not interested in. If it's something you're interested in, pick it up. No questions asked. You don't need to look up anything. But it may be worth money, and you may be able to sell that to fund something you do want. Sorry I sound like a broken record, but I'm just kind of going over things here, trying to be as particular as possible. That leads me to certain distributors. This falls into the knowing the market, knowing your hobby sort of thing, but certain distributors are out of print. So if you see an Anchor Bay movie, they're no longer printing Anchor Bay DVDs because they're not in existence. Artisan, HBO Home Video, Image, Sterling is another one. Now, Sterling's kind of funny because I've found Sterling movies, they have a really cheap look to them too, and they're usually movies you've never ever heard of, dramas from the 80s, 90s, things like that. I've picked some up that I've sold for like $30+ online, movies that I have no interest in, to be quite honest. But it seems to me that the majority of sterling releases are not worth anywhere near that. So again, do your homework, use your eBay app, use your smartphone. That's the way to do it. Not every one of their releases is going to be worth something, but it may be worth something to you. So look it up, see if it's something you are interested in. If it's not, then look it up to see if it's something you could sell. And that leads me to arguably the most important thing, eBay. You have to know how to use eBay. So start up an account. Again, the app is great. I do a lot of my selling with the app. I take pictures right there, a little description of what it is, and sell it off, especially when I'm upgrading, which is another little side note to make. If you have a DVD, always look to see what that DVD is going for. I've sold countless DVDs that are out of print or just worth money in demand to fund the Blu-rays, and usually don't have to pay too much. There are cases where I don't pay anything, where I make a few bucks because the DVD is going more than the Blu-ray, which does happen often. So, or not often, but it does happen sometimes. So always look up your DVD. Don't just get rid of it. Don't trade it into like a bookshop or something. Look it up. See what it's going for. If it's going for 10, 15 bucks, great, put that towards the Blu-ray version. But learning how eBay works is definitely an imperative here. So sign up for an account, sell a few things, get your feet wet. It's really not too difficult, honestly. And once you have a template that you kind of go, you don't have to have, if you've got a movie that's in demand, you don't really have to have an enticing description or anything like that. Know how to title your listings. I will say, just copy other listings that look like they know what they're doing. Usually what I'll do is put the movie, the year, the format, and that's really it. You know, that's all you really need. So definitely learning eBay and how to list things, how to take pictures, good, well-lit pictures of your item, at least one of the front, one of the back, and one on the inside. And if there's any damage, of course, show the damage in pictures. These are all just little things that you could do to make yourself more adept at selling things on eBay as a hobbyist, which is what I've been doing for years. Another thing that I personally do is, say there's a movie going for $9.99. I'll put mine up for $8.99. Now, I know that doesn't sound like much, but you still make $3, $4 profit, and it only takes me a minute or two to really post an item at this point. So if there's a movie for $8.99 or $9.99, I'd usually sell it $1 underneath the cheapest possible listing so that mine goes quickly and I could just keep the wheels turning in terms of collecting. And also, I don't want to really inflate the market. This is my hobby, this is my passion, so I don't want to be an asshole and charge $13.99 for a movie that you could buy at $9.99. And another tip for eBay is buying lots on eBay. So you could, I don't know, say there's a specific horror Blu-ray that you want, and you type it in with the word lot. Let's use Suspiria Blu-ray lot. And then a whole bunch of lots come up that have Suspiria in the lot. Maybe the other 4 or 5 movies aren't anything you're interested in. Maybe a couple of them you're interested in, the rest you're not. You could get those and resell them as a lot or individually. Usually you'd get more individually, but because of shipping prices for each individual item, you know, it could end up being better just to sell them in a lot, but you have to learn and make these determinations. And that's another way you could do things. Now, lots usually in 2020 are priced about what each individual item is worth, which is a shame, but every once in a while you find a big enough lot, and if you've got the money to spend, it could be a good investment for you to grab the couple movies out of there that you want and then resell the rest of the lot. This is a tip I've been using since I was a teenager on eBay collecting video games and movies, but there have been cases where I've made a good amount of money doing this sort of thing, even over the last year or so, so it's still possible. And the last thing I really want to talk about is something that not everybody is going to feel so comfortable with. I have a certain personality type where I have no problem talking to people that own these shops, these thrift shops, pawn shops. Now, what I'm talking about is getting to know people, creating a rapport, being friendly, being nice. Not only is it the right thing to do as a person, to be sociable and to be respectful, but it may also help you get some good deals in the future. You know, show them how passionate you are about collecting. Not all up in their faces, but do it subtly. You know, use tact. It makes for good business. If somebody sees that you enjoy collecting movies and you're in there weekly looking for movies, they're probably eventually going to go out of their way to give you little discounts, to let you know about things that may be coming out in the near future. I'm at a point where sometimes I go into shops and I'm looking at their movies and I'm like, hey, Bob, what's going on, man? I know them by name and things like that. So sometimes they'll be like, hey, we got some movies in the back, Mike, you want to take a look through them? And I'm like, well, of course I do. So it does take some time to build up that sort of of a rapport with certain places you go into, but it is worth doing. Now, I will say, don't ask for discounts at Goodwill or at Salvation Army or Restore, places that are more charity based. But if it's a little hole-in-the-wall thrift shop, any pawn shop, always ask for a deal at pawn shops. That is part of the business model. Some may shut you down. That leads me to another thing. Get used to being shut down in terms of discounts. But what's the worst that could happen? They'll say no, you move on. You say, okay, and who knows, maybe the more you buy, if you're in there weekly, week after week after week, they'll start to lighten up, and maybe you could see another opportunity. You're buying like a stack of movies. Hey, can you do any better on these? Always say, can you do any better on these? Because sometimes people will make you a deal that is even better than the one you had in your mind. I mean, this happens constantly. I can't tell you how many hundreds and hundreds of dollars I've saved just using this bit of advice. Flea markets, always haggle. Get comfortable with haggling. It's going to be awkward at first, especially if you're not a very sociable person, which I understand. If you could push yourself to it, get used to it. Get used to the rejection. Eventually, it will pay off. I freaking guarantee it. If you are consistent with asking for deals, haggling at flea markets and yard sales, again, for sure, always haggle. People expect haggling at flea markets and yard sales. And some people are still going to be like, nope, sorry, man, it is what it is. Okay, I understand. Sure, no problem. Be respectful. Don't burn any bridges, because you never know. The same vendor could end up hooking you up in the near future once they see you as a returning customer and see you buying more and more from them. And like I said, I know so many store owners and thrift shop employees and things like that in my area by name. You know, I walk in and we have a nice friendly conversation. Again, it's the right thing to do anyway, and it also helps me fuel my passion for collecting. So it's a good thing. I mean, I go into places and they're like, hey Mike, we got a whole bunch of new movies, check this out, check that out. I've even got people that hold certain movies for me because they think I may enjoy them based on our conversations about movies and things that I've bought with them in the past. So sometimes I'll go into a shop and they'll have some horror movies put to the side for me. Creating a rapport is one of those little tips that not everybody really sees right up front, but it does help you save money. I have saved, again, hundreds, probably thousands of dollars using these tactics. I've even gotten stuff for free. I'm not going to name the shop, but last time I went into a pawn shop, which was last week, I hadn't been in there in a couple months. I walked up, I was talking to my good buddy that works there, really nice guy, and I brought up a stack of movies this high, 7 or 8 movies, and he said, they're yours for free. I was like, what? Can I give you anything? He was like, no, I haven't seen you in a couple months. Hope you're doing all right. Movies are yours. That's not an exaggeration. It happens. Just be friendly and talk to people, especially when you find somebody that works at one of these shops that likes movies. Then you have a common interest. It's a beautiful thing, and it may help you save money. And I guess the last little side note is making people, family, friends, people that I'm talking about that work at these shops, making people aware that you're always looking for movies, always looking to look through some movies to see if there's anything you'd like to buy. I've had family members, friends of friends and things like that even just give me their movies. In fact, I had one of my mom's friends had a whole bunch of DVD cases. I know it's not actual movies, but DVD cases recently that were in beautiful shape, like over 100 DVD cases, and I was like, I'll take them. But she thought of me because she knew through my mom, I guess, that I collected movies. And I've got a whole bunch of replacement cases now. Making connections, letting people know you collect, being proud of your collection and your collecting. And I guess lastly, I'll just say, if you are going to collect online, which I definitely do a good amount of, you know, there's no doubt about it. If there's certain things that are on Blu-ray that just came out, I'll sell my DVD to get the new Blu-ray, etc., things like that. But always look for the best price. I know it seems obvious, but look at eBay. Look at Amazon. If it's an anime, go to all the different anime boutiques. PlayAsia, things like that. Just a ton of different... Always look for the best price. I'm sure there are resources out there that give you the best prices, you know, like that line up all the places that have your item and then they show you who has the best price. Always do this. Always go to eBay, go to lowest price plus shipping. buy it now or auction. And if you have even more patience than I do most of the times, you could bid on things, because sometimes you'll get really, really good deals bidding on eBay still to this day. It depends. If it's something that doesn't have too much demand and they start the bid really low, you may get a good deal on it. You never know. So be smart, even if you're collecting online, which is something we all do at this point. I'd say 80% of my collection is from going out to the yard sales, thrift shops, pawn shops, etc. But the other 20% is from me online. Just be smart. If you're going to spend money online, it's going to be a little bit more. Know that. And just be smart about it. Always look for the cheapest price, because every penny counts. Every dollar counts, especially when you want to collect. It's a beautiful thing. I hope this little resource gave you guys a whole bunch of tips on how to collect physical media here in the modern age of digital streaming. Us collectors, we love the physical thing. We love just pulling out Brian's Song, which is a great movie, and just looking at the box and looking at the artwork on the disc and the artwork on the case and putting it back on the shelf, sort of like the old video store days. That's how I view it, at least. And I hope this video gave you guys some tips, some pointers, some rules of thumbs in terms of how to collect on a budget with very little money. Even if you make a shit ton of money, you could still be smart and frugal with your money and save a lot doing some of the things that I talk about in this video. But again, you need time, patience, perseverance, and consistency. Those are the keys. I just want to thank you all for checking out my How to Collect Physical Media, especially on a Budget video here. I hope you guys learned something about collecting, and I hope it saves you some money in the future, no doubt, especially if you're as passionate about it as I am about collecting. It has helped me tremendously. I've learned a lot. I felt I had to impart my knowledge on all of you, so I hope you learned something. If you guys have any pointers that I didn't mention, I'd love to know what you guys think, so feel free to leave those down in the comments below. I tried to hit everything that I could think of, but there may still be some things that are subconscious that I've just missed, or some things that I just don't do in general, so feel free to leave those down in the comments and we'll get a little discussion rolling. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel and want to see more videos like it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, as well as the little bell for notifications. Anyway guys, I will see you next time. Bored Cyborg, out.